Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Authentic Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Ojany-Bekhor, your leadership and well-being coach. This is episode 84. And once again, I am joined by a very, very special guest. She is a marketing consultant, a singer-songwriter. Welcome, Olivia Ambani. Welcome, Liv. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. And honestly, just a quick one. I'm so happy it's episode 84 because I'm an 84 baby. So yay.
Signs.
Right?
So, dear listener, if this is the first time you're tuning into the Authentic Leadership Podcast, I like to say to people that I help leaders and your teams solve your personal and professional challenges. I have plenty of podcast episodes where it's just me rambling on about a topic of interest, but I also have a lot of episodes where I'm chatting to some very, very interesting leaders in their field. And the leaders I like interviewing have certain things in common. Number one, they are authentic. They value well-being, they value authenticity, and they all do work that involves elevating other people. Now, Liv and I met in 2020. Liv, it was Rona time.
Yes. In the thick of it.
In the thick of it. And one of the things I did, dear listener, during those Rona years was, like so many of us, because of the go slow, I just allowed myself to express creativity that I would sometimes put to the back burner in the busyness of things. And so one of the things that came up for me was I just really wanted to revamp how I'm expressing myself, how the brand is expressing itself. And so I was looking for somebody to help me with that. And a lot of people recommended Olivia. And that's how we got to know each other. Liv has helped me revamp the website. She helped me get clarity on how to, use the numerous creative platforms out there like Canva, unsplash.com to get really great photos. It's been such an education hanging out with Liv. And right now she's helping me with a couple of new brands that I want to create. More on that later. So, as I was saying to Liv earlier, I identify as a creative person. I love creativity. I love creating something out of nothing. I live creatively. So some people find it quirky, some people find it different, but for me, it's just living creatively. And what does that mean? It means, for example, I have never gotten myself a permanent office. And the reason I've never gotten myself a permanent office is because I like working from different beautiful locations. Sometimes I'll just work from home. And this was even before the pandemic. Sometimes I'll just work from home. Other times I'll go to a beautiful cafe nearby. Other times I'll go to a hotel. Sometimes I'll drive like even an hour out to locations like Tigoni here in Kenya. And for me, that's part of how I live creatively, even how I choose to parent. I parent my daughter creatively. Whatever ideas come to me, I'm ready, willing, and able to express them, including in my business. So, for example, a lot of people are surprised to hear that I am a solopreneur. I want to remain a solopreneur. I love partnering with other solopreneurs. I love how quickly things can flow and move. And those are just some examples of how I live creatively. I also love the fine arts. I love the fine arts. A good movie, a good painting. One of my closest friends who passed away during the Rona years, her name was Pam. Pam was somebody who fully expressed her creativity, and she brought that out in me. So as long as I live, I'll never forget my dear friend Pam. We would spend hours talking about music. She was constantly trying to get me to enhance my wardrobe, but I'm not somebody who likes digging in shops for clothes. But Pam would do that. She took me shopping once and she really enjoyed the digging around. And so, dear listener, when you when you see my social media pages, when you hear that I run my own business, coaching, training in organizations, you might wonder, how is that creative? But that to me is what creativity is. Let me stop talking now because I would love, Liv, to hear more about your creative journey. By the way, everybody, Liv has some amazing music available on platforms like iTunes, amazing albums, amazing singles. We'll be hearing more about that. But Liv, what has your journey been like as a working creative?
Wow, that's a big question. I don't know
I
how long
know,
we
right?
have, but let me try.
The journey
Let me
will
try
take
and
1 hour
pack.
to describe.
Right. But honestly, like I've always been creative and I grew up in a very creative family. So if I start with my upbringing,
Yeah.
I was raised by my mom and her four sisters and my grandmother. So that's six women.
Wow.
And yeah, it was amazing. And my grandmother had a farm in Kitale. And so I remember when we were there was like a specific kind of routine. We'd always go for walks mid-morning, and then afternoons were for either sleeping or you do something creative. So you either do knitting or you will draw or go to the farm. So there was like this funness to how we grew up,
Wow.
especially on holidays. And then even when we moved to the city now, to Nairobi, like one of my aunties, Auntie Pamela, she kept that up. Like she was the one who, when we were at her house, would always either draw, knit,
Yeah.
do something fun, you know?
Wow.
So I was surrounded by creativity. And then every auntie had their type of music. So one auntie was really into classical music. Another auntie liked like Angelique Kidjo. My
Yes.
mom was like more R&B. So, you
Wow.
know, I was just always surrounded by creativity. And because my mom and her family just, they were like entrepreneurs and they expressed themselves so
Yeah.
then it meant that I saw that it's possible to do that. I mean, a few were in corporate, like two, three of my
Yeah.
aunties were in corporate, but they also had a creative side. So I think being surrounded by that growing up made
Wow.
me feel like, yeah, this is normal. And then a very key thing that
Yes.
my mom and my aunties always asked me when I was, you know, whatever I was pursuing, they'd always say, use your talent. When are you going to use your talent? And they really encouraged us to use our talents. And so I was always pretty good at music. Like I loved singing.
Yeah.
And so even when I went to uni and when I came back, they'd always be like, yeah, so when are you using your talent? Like they obviously wanted me to have, you know, the security of a job and everything, but they always saw potential in creativity
Yeah.
in all of us. And so I think because of that, I've always been able to kind of express myself in a way, and they would come to the shows. Like in school, like we had all these talent shows and concerts, and to
Yeah.
them it was normal. They're going to be there cheering you on, excited, you
Wow.
know. So I think my upbringing was very nurturing for someone
Yeah.
creative.
And
Yeah. So
this is so beautiful, Liv. And
mm,
I want to say that it is rare in the Kenyan context, and dare I say the
yes.
African context, although I'm not sure. What do you think?
Mm,
Let me pull some threads from what you've said, because you've said a lot there. What do you think made your
mm,
mom and your aunties this way? Or maybe I should ask, what do you think made your grandma this way? Because there was this really active and intentional focus on people creating. Or is it,
yeah.
does it have to do with farming? Because farmers tend to be very grounded. You know, you can't be off with the fairy
Mm.
farmer. It's all about creating. So you know what I mean? Like it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we need to till this soil, we need to nurture whatever we are growing. We can't force
Yeah.
it. We have to be with nature. I'm curious, what made your grandma that way? What made your aunties that way? Do you know?
Yeah, I think if I look back when they tell me about their upbringing, so my grandmother, I didn't get to meet my grandfather, unfortunately, he passed before I was born. But my grandmother and my grandfather were very like, so they brought up their kids in a time, obviously it was pre-colonial time, like at
Yeah.
that time, and so for them. their kids went to a lot of these schools where it was mainly like white British
Yeah.
people, and so they really encouraged their children to participate in anything that they felt they wanted to, because in most of the schools they went to, there were kind of the only few Black people. And
Right.
so they were like, you will excel. And it wasn't like forcing, but it was like, if you want to do tennis, if you want to do this, then you can do it. And obviously it was rare then.
Yes.
And so they really banded together as siblings and as a family to be like, yeah, we can be excellent at these things. And also I think because of my grandmother and grandfather, their coupling was kind of seen as unconventional, because at the time when my grandmother met my grandfather, I think he was a driver for, like, the way they viewed him, they're like, oh, this is all you do. But they trusted the coupling and they were like, no, we'll build something. So it was frowned upon, like, you two, you'll never do anything. And so I think because they had this love and they were like, no, we will figure it out. And they were
Yes.
very creative in how they did things. My grandmother was like, she made sure she went to school, like she would hide and figure out a way to go to school. So because they individually were quite independent and were doing things that at that time it was like unheard of, I
Yeah.
think that influenced the way they allowed their children to be free, and they understood that each child is different. They have different strengths and stuff. And so I think that's what really influenced, their ability to, I guess, allow or create this space of creativity. And then because also culturally, like they had only girls. And so I'm Luya. And in our culture, like sometimes it's seen as you need a boy or whatever, but they were very
Yes.
protective. Like, no, girls are amazing. They're also powerful. So I think they just gave them the opportunity to thrive and to be who they needed to be, because I think they believed in the next generation should have it better than we did. It
Yes.
was very instilled in them. And so and also going back to the schools, because they went to schools that also like fostered the arts at that time, which obviously was really rare because it meant you had to go to kind of a colonial school. So
Right.
that meant that they then carried it on to us. And for them, it was like, you will still love your roots. You love that you're African. Like we were spoken to Maragoli. That was the first language you spoke,
Wow.
but you will also adapt and know the Queen's English. So it was learning to code switch, but allowing you to express yourself, because they understood the power of that so early on, in a time when our country was like, you're dancing between cultures.
Yeah.
So I think that influenced a lot of their freedom, because I guess that's how they expressed their freedom in such a time.
That's so, so powerful. What I'm getting from everything you're saying, Liv, is your grandparents understood how to play the game.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, dear listener, is this. This world it's just a series of games, right? This planet Earth that we're in, it's a series of games. And when I use the word game, I don't mean it's frivolous. What I mean is there are certain rules, there are certain goals, exactly like in a game. Like if you think of a football game, for example, there's certain rules, there's certain goals. Okay, you have to kick the ball into the other side's net, and whoever who kicks the ball the most times wins. So that's what I mean when I say games. And in a situation like that, where you're looking around and realizing, okay, an external force has arrived at our shores, and it would have been really important in amongst all that to realize, okay, so this is the game. Let me play the game. I will go to your schools. I will talk the Queen's English, but I will remind my kids of their awesomeness as Africans. We will speak our language. We will. That's what I mean when I say you gotta play the games. You play them in your own way, and it just sounds like your grandparents were just very intentional. Like, yeah, we're gonna do this, but we're also gonna do this. We're gonna do this, but we're also gonna do this. And I like how you talk about the code switching as well, which is 100% accurate. How do you speak the Queen's English and also speak your traditional language so that people are able to remember that, yes, even though I sound like this, I'm also
Yes.
very much African. I love being African. You don't have to take on one and abandon the other, or you don't have to push on
True.
one and abandon the other. I love that. So you
True.
saw successful, you saw successful creative people, and that's why for you it was normal and normalized.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you're hearing that, dear listener, because that's what really boosts children's confidence. If we are seeing the thing, it becomes real for us. And for example, for me, I say to people that women in leadership was not some mystical, amazing, wonderful thing. I just grew up with a mom who was a leader. And so later on, like when I wrote my memoirs, and as I was thinking through my life, I realized, oh, wow, it was growing up with a mom who was a senior leader that just made me know that, yeah, this is possible, it's probable, it's the norm. All my mom's friends were senior leaders. And so it's so key, dear listener, to understand that our kids are watching us and absorbing certain truths based on how we are behaving. And it's actually the reason why I explain to a lot of parents that I coach, Liv. I tell them, the reason why celebrities become celebrities, the reason why kids really love following and listening to celebrities, one of the reasons is because if you don't have that role model in the home, you're going to look for it online. So
True.
if you want to sing and no one's encouraging you to sing, you're going to start following all the singers you admire. If you want to do comedy, if you want to act, if you want to. So again, dear parents who are listening, you might not be good at something, but you can always find a real life living role model that your kid can be mentored by, etc., etc. There's nothing wrong with following celebrities that you like, but it really helps.
True.
There's nothing wrong with that. But it can really help a kid if they're able to see in the living flesh an example of what they'd like to be. Now, Liv,
Yeah.
you are one of your titles is marketing consultant, singer, songwriter. How did you get into marketing? How has the singing career gone? What have been your adventures? Because you do run your own business as well. What have your
Yes.
adventures there been like?
Yeah. Ooh, so with marketing, I'll start with marketing. So with
Yeah.
marketing, it actually came as a result of me working at different places. So I studied to do communication and new media, which in simple terms is just web design, graphic design, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I worked at a fashion house when I came back to Kenya. And when I was there, I was an intern doing graphic design and stuff. And then I saw an opportunity for marketing. Well, I just kind of was leaning more into it. I loved visuals. And it was a time when social media was just coming up, Facebook and all that. And so I kind of knew how to operate it. And so in the end, I ended up doing the marketing for Kiko Romeo, which was a fashion company I was working for.
Nice.
And from that, it just kind of continued. Anywhere I'd go, I'd always see I'm like, why aren't people portraying themselves or putting their brand out there? And then I'd give suggestions and then I would end up doing the marketing. So fast forward a couple of years later, I'd worked for different companies and kind of had a dual roles. I'm doing communication, but I'm also doing marketing. And I decided, you know what, I'd really like to help specifically solopreneurs or maybe small businesses, because everyone was always targeting, I want the big corporate. I want,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was like, no, I actually want the smaller businesses, because that's actually, I've worked mainly in like with solopreneurs and small businesses. And I've seen the impact of having, service providers that actually understand that and cater to that. So I wanted that. And also like growing up, my grandmother was like, a business owner, and my mother. So I was like, those are my people. I wanted to support such people.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up doing marketing. But now also on the singing side, so I sang pretty much all the way through school, choir, was in a girl group in high school. But then when I went to Yes, like we sang at weddings. I've
Yeah,
sang at a couple of people's weddings. That's really
yeah.
cool. Um, but when I went to university, so I was doing my degree in communication and media, but then I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to make my career as a musician happen. I was in England, so I tried to audition for, X Factor, musicals, all these different things, trying to get signed, the conventional way.
Wow.
And it was good experience, but it didn't pan out the way I thought. And then I came back home to Kenya, and you got to get a job, you've got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so I was singing BGB for a friend of mine called Emmanuel Jal. Still trying to figure out how can I get recognized? How can I get out there? And then I stopped for a bit because I was frustrated. I was tired. I was like, this isn't going anywhere. You know what? Maybe it's just not going to pan out. And then I remember I was like, but you're very good at making things happen for other people. Why don't you use that same energy for yourself? And so that's when I started to pursue my career as an independent artist. And I said, it's not about being discovered or being signed. I will figure it out. Like I've always
Yes.
seen people figure it out, so I can do the same. So,
Yeah.
and that's also where now marketing and music collided, because I was like, if you're good at marketing other people, then you should just market yourself, right? Be your own client.
Yeah.
So I decided to be my own client and to use the skill sets I'd learned by marketing other people to market myself. And so till this day, I am my own client. I use the info and the insight I get when I market other people for my own brand. And
Yeah.
so far, it's been really cool. And so that's really been the journey of like being creative, not just in the practice of the art, but in the approach of my career and whatever I'm doing. Because even as a creative, you can become very conventional in your approach and be like, okay, you're supposed to do this and then do that. So I always tell people, get creative even in your creative practice in other parts. Like, is it in the way you do your income streams or the way you market yourself? Like, allow creativity to flow in every area of your life, because you will find a lot of genius and a lot of gems in that approach.
Yeah, it's so, this is what I love about being in flow and in sync with a person. I have literally, what you just said just then, Liv, I wrote it down as you were talking before you said it. I literally wrote down, I literally wrote down how to get creative about being a working creative. And then you just said a similar sentence. And I really want the listeners to pull that thread. It's about, so there's the creative practice. So you're a musician, you're a graphic designer, you're a storyteller, you're a writer, whatever the art form is. But again, you also have to be creative about how you approach your work, your business, your, getting creative about being a working creative. And here's the thing. Creativity doesn't have to be switched on and off. It really doesn't. You can be creative about how you dress.
True.
And it's really interesting, Liv. This brings me to the other thread I wanted to pull from what you said, because this is what a lot of people don't seem to understand. It's about portraying yourself in a certain way, expressing yourself. This is why it makes complete sense that somebody like you is in marketing. Marketing sounds like this big corporate word, but really, dear listener, marketing is just a big word to say, how can you get yourself out there so that the people who need you can find you? How can you get yourself out there so that the people who need you can find you? And this is something a business coach taught me. He said, guys, you want to get yourself out there so that the people who need you can find you. It's not get out there for the sake of getting out there. It's so that the people who need you can find you. And if you portray yourself in an appealing way, in a compelling way, and you can still be true to yourself. This is another reason why I really like working with people like you, Liv, because you care very much about the individual. You care very much about the client, what they are about, what their values are. so that in the marketing, it comes across as genuine, because it is genuine,
Yes,
right? Because it is genuine.
absolutely.
And this is why, dear listener, if you jump onto my socials, you're not going to see me in a formal dark suit so that I can be taken seriously as a coach. I have shot videos in forests. I shoot videos when I'm on the beach. I like,
I've seen it. I love it.
yeah, you've seen them live, right? Like, I'm just
Yes.
being me. I'm just being me. And so, dear listener, what Liv and I would really love for you to understand is you can be you and still do well. You can be you. Just get the help of someone like Liv to help you channel that energy, channel that message in a compelling, beautiful, appealing way so that the people who need your services can find you. Now, let me ask you something, Liv. Why does creativity matter? Maybe I should have asked this
Oof.
at the start, but we got caught up in our stories. Why does
Yeah.
creativity matter? Because too many people, I think more people are wanting that for themselves. I think the past
Yeah.
years really slapped us around. As soon as we were getting our heads above water, then, we get pulled into these global wars and this and
True.
that. And people are just, I'm a coach. People tell me their secret. I work as a coach. People tell me their secrets. People are at their wits' end. And one of the interesting
Right.
things that happens, one of the interesting things that happens when your back is to the wall is some people decide to surrender. And one of the things that can happen is they just decide, you know what? I'm just going to do what I want to do. I'm done with the mask. I'm done with the facade. And this is why people come to me when they're ready to quit jobs, change careers, completely express different and suppressed parts of themselves. So that's the upside sometimes when your back is to the wall. So I believe more and more of us are wanting to express our authentic selves creatively. But there's still so many people who fear creativity. There's still so many parents out there who would tell their kids, no, 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 we're not going down that road. I'd love to hear from you, Liv. Why do you think creating and expressing your creativity matters?
Yeah, I mean, that's a powerful question. But before I answer that, I really would like to emphasize something you said, that you can be you and be successful. I think that is such a fundamental thing, you said. And I think a lot of times in even creative practices, sometimes you're almost pushed to be unlike yourself because there's already a mold that people have seen be successful. They're like, so be like that person.
Exactly.
So it's really important for us to understand whether you're in something that's stereotypically creative or anything in life, you can be yourself and be successful. I think that's something that I would love our listeners to really just soak on that, meditate on that, think on that. Yeah. Because most of the times we are trying to be like someone else who was successful to be successful because that's what we were told. Yeah. But you were created to be yourselves. But there's a reason why we need you with your individuality. Yeah. Because no one can be you. Literally nobody can be like you. And so if you spend time being like someone else, that means that you rob us of yourself and yourself of yourself. That means the things you are supposed to fulfill cannot, because you are being someone else. And so it means who you are we never get to experience them. So I really want people to think about that. The other thing, now back to the question.
Let me please don't lose your train of thought there, Liv, because
no worries.
you said something that's so key, because, and here's the thing, dear listener, there are, what are we, 8 billion in the world right now? I've lost track. But however many human beings there are that many personalities, thoughts, ideas. The permutation and combination that makes up you, dear listener, there is nothing and no one else like it. Right? One of the things I used to say when I was running workshops, especially for my workshops for women, I mean, I work, dear listener, for those who are joining for the first time, I work with all genders. And one of the things I used to say, particularly to the women, was ladies, there's enough room in the world for Solange, Erica Badu, um, Nicki Minaj, Megan Thee Stallion. So you see,
Yeah.
these are all Black creative American musicians, but they're all doing their thing. And they all have
Exactly.
fans and they're all successful. And they're also, I like giving that analogy because because sometimes people think it's a throwaway line, do you and you'll be
Right?
successful. But this is a real thing, dear listener. It's
It
a
is.
very real thing. Now, there's something else you said, Liv, where when you start trying to be like somebody else, even creatively, you're robbing the rest of the world. You're robbing yourself and you're robbing the rest of the world of your ideas, your solutions, and your suggestions. And again, dear listener, just think about this from a very, very practical level. Look around the room you're in right now. Look around the room you're in. So if I look around the room I'm in right now, there's a really beautiful mug. I'm having my hot chocolate from there. My spectacles, I've got one pair on my face, one pair that are down here on the table, my phone, if I look at my nails, my nail polish, my pen, my laptop bag. I mean, all those people, all those creators express themselves. And I walked into a shop and went, oh my God, that's the mug for me. Oh my goodness, these specs look great on me. Wow, this nail polish looks perfect with my complexion. So this is what Liv and I,
Yeah.
dear listener, like this is what Liv and I mean when we say your ideas are going to appeal to someone and they need it. They need,
They
they need
do. They
they need
do.
that thing that you're going to create. They need that thing that you're going to create. But back to you, Liv. I asked another big question.
You
Why does
did.
creativity even matter? I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but please share
Yeah.
more about your thoughts with that.
So, yeah, as I said, it really does touch to what we were just speaking about, like how it's important for you to be you and how being you leads to your success.
Yeah.
And the thing about being creative, or especially if you're, in the creative practices, if we're going to go a bit deeper, which I'd love to, is that we are spirit first. I believe we are spirit first in bodies. And so when you're a creative who really taps in deep, you really get into flow and connecting with your spirit, because there's an element of letting go that allows you to create in a very powerful way. And I think that's so important, because being creative allows you to express yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be the conventional way everyone says, I need to sing, I need to paint, I need to,
Yes.
do pottery. No, it's just expression. It could be, as you said, the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you parent, the way you cook,
Yes.
and creativity allows you to flow, allows you to create solutions, and it allows you also to be free. I really attach creativity a lot with freedom.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you are not allowed to be creative, it means that you are almost forced to follow a specific mold. Like, this is how it's done. This is the only way. But
Yeah.
when you're creative, when creativity is allowed, it allows you to figure out, why are you even here, or what do I want to do in this point in time?
Yeah.
And also just generally how creative practices work, there's room for that. So even if you choose not to be a singer, or the traditional like creative practices,
Yeah.
it's good to be able to express yourself in some way, and it gives you a way to process so many things.
Yes.
And even if you look at the world right now, like after COVID or during COVID, people really were leaning into the creative arts, or because it was a way to process. Music was a great way for you to just, you're feeling this grief, you're feeling this pain, and you can listen to a song or sing a song, or paint, or express yourself, or talk to somebody. And so I think creativity is really important because of the deeper thing that it creates. It allows you to explore, it allows you to be free, it allows you to just look inward and be like, who am I? You know,
Yeah.
because nobody colors the same. Like you could all be painters or you could all color, whether you're a painter, color, whatever,
Yes.
and you will do it your way. Like there's
Yes.
a way that even if you try force yourself to do something like someone else, creativity almost pushes you to have to figure out
Yeah.
some individual way of you doing things.
Yeah.
And so I think creativity is so important because it allows us to express ourselves. And as people in general, I think everyone wants to be seen in
Yes.
some shape or form.
Yes.
And so that's why I think, you know, creativity is so, so important because we've been pushed to be a certain way, even the way our lives work. You know, you go to
Yep.
school and then
Yep.
university, and then maybe the next is you find a job and, you know, possibly get married and have kids. Like it's it's structured.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, but creativity also, sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Liv.
And so with creativity, it allows you to explore and express. And I feel like we are always hoping for that. That's something that I feel so many of us want, but maybe don't know how to do. And so, I would really always encourage people like figure out a way to express yourself. And it does not have to be, as I said, paint, sing, dance. No, it could be in just the way you choose to live your life.
Yeah.
And also be open to interrogating like what matters to you. I think creativity really helps with that because what matters to you now in this moment, because it's going to change. And so that's how you can also think about living your life creatively. Like maybe you've always wanted to have a type of tea in the morning, but everyone in your house says, no, this is better. But maybe that's your way of creatively expressing yourself. And just to add, it's that when we refuse or when we maybe are limited in how we are as people, you die very slowly and it's very painful. Because the more you tell someone you can't be, you need to be someone else, there's this life that just disappears in them. And so they're alive physically, but are they alive? And so I think we're in an age where we need to allow people to be who they need to be because they all came here for a specific reason. And it doesn't have to be something, massive, like I'm going to change the world. It could just be like, I came here to wear the best ties in the world. Or I came here to have the best laughter, like whatever that is. Allow people to be who they want to be. And also, more importantly, allow yourself to be who you want to be. There is so much freedom and so much joy and so much love in that.
Yeah, and my goodness, you've shared so much in there, Liv. And to start with, this is a spiritual thing. This is a spiritual thing. Again, some people will hear that and they will get it immediately. But for those who you're still not connecting the dots, think of it like this. Whoever or whatever created us created unique beings. This is that thing of, okay, we're 8 billion of us on the planet. There are 8 billion unique people on the planet right now. So whoever created us did it in a creative way. I'm using the same word to describe the thing, creative, creator. But so many traditional beliefs about God, for example, like even here in Kenya, in Africa, God is seen as such a creative entity. And whether you're an atheist, you might be an atheist. I've coached atheists as well, but even the atheists admit, like, there's an organizing force that is beyond all of us. Yeah, what we call that force differs. But nobody can deny. I mean, just think of the variety of flowers that exist.
Right.
Think of the variety of animals, the variety of fish. So whoever created us is clearly expressing and practicing creativity because a leopard is not the same as a lion, is not the same as a cheetah, is not the same as a serval cat. Right? So we cannot deny. And then that same force created earth, created Jupiter,
Right.
Saturn. Is Saturn the one with the rings? Forgive me, I forgot.
I think so. Yes, I think Saturn or Jupiter. I'm not sure, but yeah.
The one with the rings.
Yeah.
There's creativity everywhere, dear listener. That one you cannot deny. Creativity. I wrote a book, dear listeners. I've written my first book, which I'm so happy about, my memoirs. And it's called I'll Take Some Self-Love with That. And
I love it.
thank you, Liv. And there's a chapter, the chapter where I first went to Australia. So I was born and raised in Kenya. I went to Australia to study. Now I'm back in Kenya. And I lived in a city called Melbourne, Australia. And man, that experience was something else. Of course, there were ups, there were downs, the usual dramas of being an immigrant, but there was so much good stuff that happened. And one of the key reasons I was able to thrive in Melbourne is because of creativity. So Melbourne is the kind of city where there's always something going on, whether it's the Melbourne International Film Festival. So for a whole month, all the cinemas in the city are just showing, well, not all, but many cinemas in the city are showing a diverse plethora of movies from around the world. And the cost does not break the bank because you're an international student. You can't afford, at the $100, $300 excursions. But the Melbourne International Film Festival, the Melbourne Comedy Festival, that's where I first saw Dave Chappelle. The Melbourne Fashion Festival, I remember someone got me tickets. I can't remember who it was I went to see, but my first experience of a runway fashion show, my gosh, it blew my mind. It was stunning. It was absolutely stunning. And then just little big things like the galleries. And, I saw what creativity can do for a city when I went to Melbourne. I saw how a city can make money. I hope somebody from the government listens to this podcast episode.
Yes.
Right? Because if you think it's only taxes that are going to save the city, and of course that's something that helps, but I saw how the city of Melbourne was making money through creativity. Because here's the thing, dear listener, tourists are traveling to come to that city because of the beautiful buildings. You see, Europe has done this so well. Yeah? Tourism. If the city is beautiful and there are a lot of beautiful things to see and do, people are going to come to that city and that city will make money. So it's very important for leaders to understand, if you're the kind of person who's like, Cece, Olivia, I love this podcast, but me, I want to know about money. There's the answer for you.
Right.
If your employees are allowed to be creative, within parameters, of course, right? Because the job needs to be done. But if your employees are allowed to be creative about a process that they design, creative about the tweaks they make to the product, creative about the tweaks they make to the service that you're offering, you're going to make money. Your customers and clients will love it, okay? So that answers the money question, if there's anyone who still doubts that creativity helps us make money. But there's also this other element of well-being, creativity. If a city is designed in a beautiful, creative way, people experience well-being. I learned that from my husband. My husband works as an architect, Liv. And it blew my mind years ago when I was getting my coaching accreditation. I remember learning about how, I'll never forget this day when I was studying and working at the same time. And I remember when I was studying and I learned that not all the clients' problems can be located in their childhood or in their youth. There are many other places a client is there are many other sources of the client's problems. So I remember in the class, we were brainstorming and we started talking about how where you live could be making you sick. The house you live in, the street you live in, the city you live in. I remember going back home. So I'm in Melbourne at this time, going back home and saying to Stefan, oh my gosh, we learned about how, where you live can make you sick, the house you live in, the building you work in. And Stefan's going, yeah, that's true. So architects, the good ones, understand this. Town planners, urban planners understand this. You can help citizens be well through how you design a city. And so I remember I started attending one or two events. They were called, I remember there was one they called it placemaking. And my husband was going for that event and I was just blown away. And I went, can I come? Can I come? So I went for the event as well. And that's when I learned, Cece, you've also got to ask the clients questions about, are you happy about where you're living? Are you happy about the city you're living in? So I have since then met so many clients who moved house because where they were living, the street, the city, the home was just making them sick. And they moved to a place that was more beautiful, more healthy for them. And so this is that well-being aspect of creativity. And then, of course, like you say, Liv, if you're suppressing an aspect of yourself, you'll die a slow, painful death because you're not being seen for who you really are. You're wearing the green outfit because that's what you think is acceptable, when what you really want to do is wear the blue outfit with yellow stripes. Your hair is a certain way. Your hair is a certain way, because that's what you think is, oh, this is acceptable for this group, when you really want to express yourself in many different ways. And I coach men as well, and I say this to men all the time. One of the reasons men struggle is because they're not expressing themselves fully. Many men are running around and they're quite buttoned up. But you see, that energy will express itself in unhealthy ways. Because you're feeling so suppressed and oppressed, you will start acting out. Yeah, you'll start acting out. So, dear listener, this is what we mean when we say expressing yourself creatively. And it's not limited to the fine arts, as Liv has pointed out. Expressing yourself, living creatively also helps you heal. Now, Liv, we know that a lot of people fear expressing themselves creatively. A lot of people fear backing themselves and choosing to work purely in creative jobs or starting a business because it's not easy. It's not easy. What are some of the challenges you've seen for creative business owners, and how are you helping them to do well, in their businesses?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Firstly, I want to say this point before I answer that. And one is like, especially when it comes to like expressing yourself, creativity, don't put like an age limit to it, because I feel like the older we grow, sometimes we're like, oh no, creativity is for young people. No, creativity is for everyone. So I'd really like to just put that out there. And now back to your question about like the challenges creatives face and some of the solutions I've been able to maybe support with. I think one of the ones is, interestingly, a lot of creatives or creative businesses struggle to be seen, right? Like as much as they're doing this thing that you expect people are like comfortable being seen, they struggle to be seen because of maybe they're worried about being judged or how they'll be perceived. Yeah. And maybe they've already fought so much to even just get that creative practice running. And it also takes a lot out of you to create something creatively, like, to do art. So by the time you're at the point of, okay, now let me share it with the world, sometimes you're tired and you worry if what you're sharing is too revealing. So struggling with being seen. And so kind of how I remedy that is one, help people see that who they are is enough, and to get comfortable with who they are and where they are.
Yeah.
And also not to feel like they have to rush. So just because, say, you finished a song or an art piece or product today doesn't mean that you have to release it tomorrow. You could release it a year later or a few months later when you actually have the energy to do the marketing and the interviews and everything. Because sometimes as well, people are expected to move. There's this hurriedness, or like, let's do things quickly. And I always tell people, trust the timing. So also bringing people back to their own inner knowledge and intuition. So one, getting comfortable being seen sometimes means that you need to slow down. Like, okay, you've done this thing, slow down so that you have the energy to then market it. The other thing is financial, like, because obviously you need money to create some of these things. And financially, art can take quite a bit of money, like even in the resources. Like, if I think of myself as an artist, like, you need to pay the producer, the studio time, maybe an instrumentalist, and a host of other things just to create the song. And once the song is out, now you maybe need the music video, photo shoot for the album or whatever, and then marketing. So it's quite costly. And so I always say, like, that's now where being creative really helps. So thinking about creative ways to manage your finances, maybe doing collaborations, applying for grants, or even just being more financially aware. Because that's what tends to happen. You're caught up in your creative practice and you're like, I don't want to think about money because it's going to like corrupt me. But actually thinking about money maybe frees you up, because if you feel more secure financially, then you can make different choices when it comes to your art. So how I've supported in that is I actually have a series on my Instagram called Money Conversations. It's open to anyone, and we talk about money, like my experience with money. I invite like financial experts or people who talk about things around money that I would like more people to know about. And so, especially because I'm a creative, I'm very specific in which guests I have and how they approach money. I want other creatives to figure out that it's possible for you to be savvy with money, to be knowledgeable about money, and still thrive at your creative practice. Like, they're not the enemy, but sometimes there's this myth, I'll call it, that if you like money or know about money, then you can't be a creative. And that is absolutely not true. They can live in the same house, they can marry, like, it's fine. They can, if anything, they help each other. So those are kind of the two main ways. And I think also just overall, by me authentically showing up and doing all the different things I do, I'm able to encourage other people. I've had so many people come up to me and say, oh my goodness, Olivia, the way you're able to balance, like, being a marketing consultant and a singer and all the things you do makes me feel like seen, so I guess that's kind of the ways that I help people. And I guess, like you mentioned it a bit with the marketing, I'm very key on the individual. How are you feeling? Where are you? How can we approach this marketing in a cleverly, but also
creative way, in a clever creative way.
Exactly. But also something that honors you where you are, because we could start on this journey and you had energy and everything, and then something changes in your life. Then we need to adjust to that. We can't just be like, no, this is the plan we started with, so we have to stick to this plan. Like, we can adjust, and that's the beauty of creativity. It allows you to flow. So I'm very key on, even when I'm working with people, to help them tune into that. I'm like, are we still comfortable with this path that we've decided to go down, or do we need to adjust? Or some clients, I've told them, actually, you can't book any more sessions because you need to rest. Like, there's nothing we're doing in these sessions. Go and sleep. Call me back in a couple of months when you feel more up to it, or maybe when that is what you're supposed to do, because it's actually, when you're very in tune with yourself and with other people, you can tell that they're hurting themselves by just forcing their way through something. So because I'm in tune with that, I tend to be like, I'm not doing you any favors. Sure, I can get the money, but then you end up being so frustrated, they're overwhelmed at the end of the session. And I'm like, my intuition is guiding me right here to just ask you, have you rested? Take some time. What's for you will always find you. So that's kind of how I approach supporting creatives and just people in general when it comes to expressing themselves.
I mean, I can 1,000% vouch for your process, Liv, because
Thank
when
you.
we met 4 years ago, but Liv, it
Mm.
seems like we've known each other for 10 years, but when we met 4 years ago, I told
Mm.
you, I just mentioned in passing that um, Liv, I'm working on a book. I just can't seem no, I said, I think I said, was I working on the courses or was I working on the book? I can't remember what I said to you, but your response was maybe it's just not the time for it. Yeah, I think it was the book because
Yeah, it was a book.
yes, it was the book, and you were like, maybe it's just not the time for the book right now. And you were spot on because now, this year, 2024, this moment is absolutely
Mm.
the right time to release my book. And I know that because, for example, the first 100 copies just flew out of my hands, had to go back to the
Wow.
printer. The bookstores are like, yes, yes, we love this. Let's do this. Let's stock your book. So I was expecting, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to, do a lot more influencing and all this. I wonder how the bookstores will be, but they were
Mm.
keen on it. So now I had this additional problem of, ooh, okay, I've got to get more copies printed by the printer, which is a good problem to have. But you were
Mm.
absolutely right. Back then, 2020 was not the time to try and really get the book out and all this. It just wasn't. And I flowed with that whole process. And it happened exactly the way it was meant to happen. So there's something about surrender.
Mm.
And the word surrender can really trigger a lot of people. It can upset a lot of people because they think surrender means giving up. And dear listener, that's not what we're saying. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. Surrender is you simply realizing, okay, this is what I can do right now with what I have. Let me work with what I have. Let me be intentional. Let me do what I need to do, but work with what I have and not stress about what I don't have, right?
Mm.
And not worry when it didn't happen on Monday, June 17th, the way you had hoped. It might happen on Tuesday, June 18th. It might happen on December 31st. You've really just gotta, there's a part of being successful that involves letting go. And letting go, surrender does not mean giving up. You're still doing what it is you need to do. But just understanding that there's so many other elements that come into play. The right person might need to come into your life at a later date. And then for those of you who believe in a higher power, there's also that organizing force also knows what it's doing, right? It's
Mm.
not all up to me, 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 me. It can't be all up to you, dear listener, because you live in a world with different people, many other people, many forces. Like there's so much more going on. And
True.
creatives understand that, which is why I think people who have suppressed their creativity, that's something that really bugs them about creatives. Creatives seem to just have plugged in to something that turns them on. And if you've suppressed your creativity, you don't get access to that thing that turns a person on and keeps them alive. It's your life force. Really, it's
True.
part of your life force. The thing that keeps you alive, dear listener, the thing that keeps the planets revolving and rotating, prana, chi, life force, sexual energy, it's been called so many things. Creativity is a big part of that. So understanding, I did an episode with Coach Carolyn Gaizuma, dear listener. Take a look. I believe it's episode 83, the one just before this one. Take a look at that as well, because part of that life force is expressing your creativity, which is also why people get sick, Liv. Literally, people become unwell when they
Yeah.
suppress aspects of themselves. Uh,
Yeah.
People literally become unwell. Now, there's something you said about money, which is so, so important to just emphasize. Think of it like this, dear listener. You need your creative projects and your creative work needs to continue going. It needs to something needs to sustain it, right? Because we want people a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now. Some projects are short, some projects are long, some projects are forever, but something needs to sustain it. And so with the money, what I say to my clients is, first of all, you have to ask yourself, what do you really think about people who have money? Because
Yes.
yeah, if you have negative, if you have negative associations with people who have money, that mindset is going to block you from attracting money, right? Because you have made it a bad thing, and why would you want to attract a bad thing? So you have to check in with yourself, dear listener, about your money mindset. And then the second thing is to remember who you're serving. Who are you serving? You see, if I don't get my money mindset in order, if I don't have the right structures to keep the money coming in, my business will die. And then all the people I could help no longer have access to that because my business has died, I've given up, it all became too hard. So that's the other way of seeing earning revenue, earning an income. It sustains you, it sustains your business, and more of those people you serve can find you. Yeah. So we need to really shift how we look at money. Thoughts on that, Liv? The money question. Let's do a bit of a deep dive because the money
Yeah, I
is so important.
yes.
How can people
I mean, you said
create
such a pivotal thing.
sorry, go ahead, Liv.
Sorry, just say that again.
I was just saying, what are some of the ways we can create structure if we are wanting to start or continue a sustainable creative business? What are some of the ways we need to approach it?
Yeah, I think one of it is you really touch on it quite powerfully, and that was like mindset. Like it starts with your mindset, and I've done interestingly, I started to do a few financial trainings for creatives last year. Trained like 1,000 creatives, and that for me just made me so happy. And one of the things I asked them was to shift their mindset, just as you were saying about how they view people who are wealthy, but for them specifically, how do you view wealthy creatives? Like, do you feel like those people who are successful financially as creatives, do you think that they kind of sold out their art to be successful? Because a lot of creatives hold that belief, and therefore they'd rather fight for the belief of a struggling artist than allow themselves to believe that they can be wealthy, successful, doing the art that they adore. Wow. So one, you have to challenge that belief. You have to believe that I can make the type of music I'm making authentically and I will be paid. I will make money in however that comes, but I can be successful and make money. So number one starts with mindset. Number two, you need to be aware of your patterns and your habits, because the thing with like, especially creative practices, is you can get money just like you can get $1 million from one song. Like, sometimes that happens. Things align and I don't know, Warner Brothers or somebody or Netflix gives you that money.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of your habits, because the issue is rarely the money. It tends to be the person who gets the money. So what habits do you have? So I always say track your spending, like your spending and your income, not just your spending. Like, how do you spend your money? And not in a judgy way, like, oh my God, you shouldn't spend like this. Just, you need to be aware. Where does your money go? And tracking helps. Yeah. Where is it going and where is it coming from? Because people sometimes get onto the tracking where it's going, but they don't track where it's from. So they don't know, where did you earn it from? So for creative, I say be very specific of, was music, was it a performance? Was it merchandise? Was it whatever it was? You need to track so that you're aware of, where am I even earning from? So tracking where your money is coming from and where it's going is important. And then the other thing is to just have regular money meetings. I have them monthly with myself. You can have them with someone. And in the money meetings, it can be very simple. You just evaluate how much money came in, how much money went out, but also what do I want money to do for me, right? Like, do I want to invest in my art? Do I want to go on holiday? Do I, and it's kind of the way I say it, it's like you need to have a relationship with money. Imagine you were dating money. You would at least go on a date, right? If you were in a relationship with money, you would go on a date with money. Like, imagine you're in a relationship with someone and you don't do anything together. Like, that relationship will not survive.
Yeah.
So most people ignore money, like they hide it, like they have this ghosting relationship with money, like blue ticket all the time. When it comes, yay, but when it's not there, they're like, forget you. So I think I'd encourage like creatives, those people in general, like have a relation, be aware, be present, because everyone has a relationship with money, but whether they're active or passive is another thing. So be aware of your money. And I know that for a lot of people, it can be triggering and anxiety inducing. That's why they don't even want to think about it. But the thing is, then you give the power to fear. But when you slowly start to address money, you start to realize money isn't against you. It actually wants you to win.
Yes.
But you need to work together. Like, you cannot change in a way, like you cannot change or address things when you're not aware of them, because then you're just moving with lack of information.
Yeah.
So the three, I mean, there's other things I would say, but the main things is your mindset. Be aware of your mindset and changing that to something more enriching that will help you achieve the things you want. 2, tracking your income and spending. And then 3, being deliberate about your relationship with money. Like consistent money meetings, even once a month, they'll be a game changer, because now you can think about saving and think about lots of other things. But those 3 are the things I would advise people to start off with.
Yeah. And those 3 are the foundational principles. Some people get really upset when you say to them, you know what, guys, it starts with you. It's a very irritating answer because we're all looking for a magic pill. No, Liv, give me the magic pill. Cece, give me the magic pill. There is no magic pill, dear listener. You've got to do the personal development work. So something so key you said that has to be highlighted. You said from what you have observed, even as you work with others, is it's less about there's no money and more about the habits you may have as a creative are not healthy. So money is coming in, but it's just pouring out because you're not keeping track. I've done a lot of work around my money mindset. And there's a gentleman called Ken Honda. Ken Honda wrote a book called Happy Money. And I attended one of his online courses, and it was so, so powerful. Ken Honda used to help people with investments, the business of making money. But he realized that people would lose the money as fast as they made it. And so what he decided to do was to also focus on emotional intelligence around money. So he gets you to think about what's the money story in your family. He gets, and for me, when I did that exercise, it went all the way back to, colonialism, right? The colonialist had the money, and this is why so many Black and brown people still have this thing of, no, I have to get the money so that I can be somebody, so that people can respect me, and so it's just important to, so that I am safe. And of course, money matters, but it's just really, really important to think about, what are the emotions, the thoughts and the behaviors that I have around money, that the family I grew up in has around money, that the country, the continent I'm in believes about money. And then, of course, you ask yourself, what are the healthy beliefs and what are the unhealthy beliefs? Now, dear listener, when it comes to habits, there are 2 types of habits. There are thinking habits and there are doing habits. Most of us know the doing habits, but you need to focus on the thinking habits. What do you think about yourself regularly? What do you think about your abilities regularly? What do you think about your work regularly? Do you think this is crap, or do you think, no, this is great? Do you think I am able, or do you think, no, I am not able? Because that is what's going to determine whether this castle you're trying to build will stand or whether it will crumble. And that's why I'm so glad, Liv, that you just kept it real and went straight there. It's about mind.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add, dear listeners, is, there's nothing wrong with having another job, another job, and then you pursue your creativity on the side and you slowly build. You build from there. You build from there. There's no point looking at a super successful creative and feeling bad. What you want to do is find out what life was like for that creative when they first started. Because everyone goes through, well, not everyone, but most people go through a similar process. I really like it, for example, when people like Beyonce and her mother share honestly about the struggles they experienced at the beginning. How her dad was pounding the pavement, trying to get them signed. Please listen to these girls. This is now Destiny's Child. Listen to these girls. Listen to these girls. How nobody would give them clothes, and the mom and I believe the mom's brother or something used to stay up all night stitching, designing, making clothes for those ladies, because it's that grind that we all have to do. As there's nothing, you don't want to look at somebody 10 years into the journey or 20 years into the journey and then feel bad that you're not making it. Go back to the early days of that creative person or that business person's business adventure or creative adventure. Big and part of the mindset, dear listener, is to appreciate and respect the early days, Liv, because too often we are focused on the end goal. How will I feel when I have made it? How will I feel when millions? How will I feel when I'm a global superstar? No. Dear listener, I remember when I first started my coaching practice, Liv, I was so happy. I was so happy working in little cafes. I was so happy driving around, going to see one or two clients here and there. I've shared this in previous podcast episodes. Liv, I started off coaching people for free. I wasn't charged. And then the client started telling me, Cece, you're actually really good at this. You should start charging. I remember when I ran my first event, and what was it? 2 or 3 people registered, and one of them was my husband's relative. So I took it as a pity registration. No one showed up. Of course, no one showed up because I had to cancel the event. Like, the event was approaching and only 2 or 3 people had signed. But I loved that part of the journey. And the reason why I loved it is because I was seeking mentorship and help even in those early days. And so, dear listener, if you're a creative listening to this, please seek mentorship. Look for those teachers who can help you, and you want to do it early. I say to anyone who wants to start a business, ask questions, seek out support and assistance, humble yourself and say, I don't know, can you teach me? Right? So I'm very open and honest about the fact that I have always spoken to business coaches, life coaches. Like, I always actively seek help. And so, we could go on and on and on about this, Liv, but we are limited for time. Any last thoughts? How can we inspire people to express their creativity, whether or not it's through a business? Because that's the other thing. You don't have to start a business with creative pursuits. You don't have to start a business with your creative pursuits. Any last thoughts, Liv, for our listeners?
Yeah, I think I would just like to ask our listeners, what sort of life would you like to have? And make it something that you are proud of. Not your family, not your friends, but you, because at the end, it's you. You'll be looking back at your life and reflecting on what mattered to you. So, if you want to paint, if you want to sing, you can do it. And I always say that you don't also have to make it a career. It could be something that you just do for expression. You don't have to make money from it. Making money from it doesn't validate it. It's just something you can choose. So whatever it is you want to do creatively or even just in life, make sure it's something you actually want to do and makes you happy, because we need to see you. We want to see you. The world is ready to see you and it will accept who you are. So I hope that, what we've discussed will inspire you to start showing up as you. There is space for you. And we want to see you and you will be supported. That's something I really want to emphasize. When you show up as yourself, support shows up. It's a magical thing. And all the best in your journeys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Liv. I absolutely love talking to authentic leaders like yourself, authentic and capable and experienced leaders like yourself. Liv, how can people find you? What are your handles on social media?
Yeah, so you just need to look for Olivia Ambani on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever, most socials, I'm there. And for my music as well, it's available on Spotify, Apple Music. I also have my whole album on my YouTube channel. So if you just want to taste it a bit, it's also there. So yeah, just look for me on all those platforms. I manage all of them. So if you message, it's me who's responding.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's Olivia Ambani. Liv, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege talking to you, and we will continue talking because, you and I have got some work we're doing together, which is very exciting. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Thank you.